Why do you put up with being treated like shit? Why can't you spot abuse and disrespect when it starts? Why do you have to actively learn how to say no and set boundaries like it's some kind of skill you're missing? Where does this compulsion to please everyone come from? This automatic willingness to sacrifice your own needs for anyone else's convenience? And why are these patterns so hard to break? You see them, you know they're killing you, but you can't seem to stop. These aren't personality defects. These aren't things therapy fixes with enough sessions. These are trained responses, and they're almost impossible to control because they were installed before you had language to resist them. In women's support groups, there's a question that comes up constantly. Why doesn't she just leave? It's asked about situations that look obviously intolerable from the outside. I spent most of my life in abusive relationships, and I asked myself the same thing. Where does this tolerance come from? What the fuck is wrong with me that I don't notice when abuse begins? Why don't I register disrespect? It's like my violence detector is broken. The standard answer points to trauma, childhood wounds, bad parents. You spend years excavating your personal history looking for the moment you broke. But that's not where the answer is. The answer is simpler and more disturbing. We were trained. And it started before we could think critically. Daycare and kindergarten teach the first lesson. Your body and your time don't belong to you. You wake up when they tell you. You have to go there even if you don't feel like it. You can't go play in the yard without permission. You are full of energy, but it's nap time and you must lie still. There are fences everywhere. You don't choose what you eat. They make you eat whatever shit they served you today. You learn to ignore signals your body sends you. External commands override internal biology. A child who can't ignore their own needs won't survive the next 15 years of institutional processing. School adds the second layer. Your mind doesn't belong to you either. You'll study what we say, when we say it, whether it interests you or not. You'll memorize information you'll never use, solving problems nobody actually has. The kid who asks, "Why are we learning this?" gets labeled difficult. Curiosity becomes insubordination. You've spent over 15,000 hours learning that authority doesn't need to make sense to be obeyed. You've learned that your time, your body, and your attention are resources to be allocated by someone else. Then comes work, military service, bureaucracy, and you already know how to function. You don't question why you need permission to take a vacation, or why you have to pay taxes on everything, or why you need a document to cross an invisible line, or why you spend 8 hours a day generating profit for someone else's retirement fund. You tolerate it. And when people ask why you can't say no in relationships, why you can't set boundaries, why you accept disrespect, well, you've spent 20 years learning you can't say no to government, to authorities, to bureaucracy, to institutions. Your no was systematically trained out of you before you even knew you had one. This is the part that stays hidden. A tolerance to violence wasn't created by your specific parents or your specific school. Those were just delivery system. The violence is structural. Your parents didn't wake up and decide to crush your autonomy for fun. Unless they were batshit crazy, which does happen sometimes. They were executing a program. Whether they did it consciously or not, Whether they were kind or cruel about it, they were preparing you for a system that requires obedience. The system doesn't care about their individual psychology or yours. It just needs bodies that know how to tolerate being controlled. And that's where the confusion comes from. You can't figure out if they loved you or abused you because they did both. Love and control were the same action. Care meant preparing you to obey. So you're stuck in this loop. Were they good parents or bad parents? Do you love them or hate them? The answer is the question is broken. They were functional components of a system that requires this kind of violence to reproduce itself. So we spend years in therapy analyzing their mistakes, their emotional unavailability, their specific failures. We trace our tolerance to violence back to mom's coldness or dad's anger. We find the wound and then keep processing it until the end of time. And then we go back to work on Monday. The system remains untouched. We've successfully redirected all that rage toward individual relationships instead of the structure that required those relationships to be violent in the first place. This is what makes mainstream therapy so useful to the system. It acknowledges your pain, it validates your suffering, it gives you an explanation and a process. But the explanation stops at your personal history. It never points upward to the architecture. You can spend a decade unpacking your childhood and never once ask, why does childhood require this level of violence? Why is it normal to force millions of children into buildings for 6 hours a day, regardless of their interest or readiness? Why do we accept that learning requires coercion? Therapy teaches you to function better within the existing structure. You learn to manage your anxiety, set boundaries, communicate your needs. You become a more effective component. The goal is always adaptation, never escape. And if you do heal, if you do become fully functional and productive and calm, the system has won. Except nobody actually heals. What happens is you learn better coping mechanisms, patches on top of a systemic virus. You're still running the same operating system, you've just installed some apps to manage the symptoms. The tolerance to violence is still there, you've just gotten better at not noticing it. Each institutional stage calibrates your pain threshold a little higher. Daycare teaches you to ignore mild discomfort. School teaches you to endure boredom and meaninglessness. Work teaches you to sacrifice your time and health for survival. At 30, you can tolerate stunning levels of absurdity. You stand in line for 3 hours to get a document you have to pay a fee for, so you can get another document that gives you permission to pay taxes. Then you watch your government bomb another country with your tax money and you can't stop paying. You see billionaires accumulate more wealth than they could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, while people die from lack of basic medicine and you keep going to work. This isn't a personal failing. This is the intended output of the system. The brilliance of focusing on personal pain is that it's real. Your parents did hurt you. Your childhood was painful. The therapist isn't lying when they say your feelings are valid. But the source of that pain isn't your parents' individual psychology. The source is a system that requires parents to prepare children for institutional violence and punishes any parent who refuses. Your mother didn't have the option to let you skip school and follow your curiosity. Your father didn't have the option to reject the workplace hierarchy and still feed you. They were trapped in the same structure. doing their best to prepare you for a world they couldn't change. So when you spend years analyzing their failures, you're looking in the wrong direction. You're looking backward at the transmission mechanism instead of upward at the broadcast source. That doesn't mean you can't be angry at them. Of course you can. But the whole time you're looking backward, you're not looking at the structure. You're not asking why this level of violence is considered necessary. You're not connecting your personal pain to the millions of others trained the same way. You're alone with your problem, trying to heal yourself into functionality. If we didn't have tolerance to violence, if we hadn't spent our entire childhood learning to accept absurd authority, what would happen? We'd refuse, immediately and collectively. Without tolerance to violence, none of this works. Someone had to teach you that some people have authority over others for no reason, that power is somehow necessary, that because I said so is a valid argument, that your needs are selfish but their control is care, that life isn't fair, get used to it. All of this had to be installed in your head. It's all bullshit. No one has inherent authority over you. Power isn't necessary. It's parasitic. Your needs aren't selfish. Because I said so isn't a reason, it's a threat. Life isn't fair because the system is designed to be unfair, not because fairness is impossible. And the fact that this had to be drilled into you for years, that they had to break you repeatedly to make it stick, means your initial response, resistance, was correct. The system would collapse in days if children's natural resistance wasn't systematically destroyed. The training starts at 3 years old for this exact reason. It's compulsory for this exact reason. Every institution reinforces the same message. Your autonomy is conditional, your time belongs to the hierarchy, and resistance is pathological. The tolerance to abuse isn't a bug in your psychology. It's the load-bearing wall of the entire structure. And as long as we're looking for the source in our personal histories, as long as we're healing ourselves back into compliance, the wall stays standing.